Just a note that the images I'll use during my sermon are by Marc Chagall, who's a famous portrayal of biblical scenes. He's a Jewish artist. So take a look after the service at home if you like, find more of his wonderful biblical images. The prophet Jeremiah did not live an easy life. Trained as a scribe, Jeremiah's life takes a turn when he receives a call from God to be a prophet. According to God, Jeremiah's work is to pluck up and to pull down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant, which is quite a job description. God starts Jeremiah out on a really easy task, proclaiming disaster to his people. The kingdoms of the north are on their way, God says, and will overcome Jerusalem and all the cities of Judah. Many years later, this disaster does indeed come to pass. Jerusalem is overtaken and the holy temple there is destroyed. And the people suffer famine and conquest, plunder and exile. And they're not too fond of Jeremiah, who keeps telling them that they are suffering because of their own faithlessness. During his prophetic career, Jeremiah is beaten, put in the stocks, imprisoned, and threatened with death. At one point, some folks get together in order to cast him into a muddy cistern in the hopes that he will get stuck there and die of starvation. But Jeremiah survives to prophesy some more. Jeremiah himself is not too thrilled about how everything is turning out. He complains that he has become a laughingstock, mocked and derided by his own people. But when he tries to forgo the work of prophecy, it is as if a burning fire is shut up in his bones. He just cannot hold God's witness within. For all of his dangerous adventures and scathing judgments, Jeremiah is best known for his words of lament, some of which we hear this morning. My joy is gone. Grief is upon me, my heart is sick. For the hurt of my poor people, I am hurt, I mourn, and dismay has taken hold of me. Oh, that my head were a spring of water, and my eyes a fountain of tears, so that I might weep day and night for the slain of my poor people. Jeremiah is eloquent in mourning the bewildering losses of his people, both in the book of Jeremiah and in the book of Lamentations, which he is traditionally given credit for writing. In Lamentation, he writes, "My eyes are spent with weeping, my stomach churns, my bile is poured out on the ground because of the destruction of my people." Because of his words in these two books, Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet. God has given Jeremiah the task of proclaiming God's judgment on the people for their sins, waking people up to hard realities and urging them to greater faithfulness. But Jeremiah is still stricken by the people's suffering. His heart, like God's heart, grieves all the wrongs done both by and to his people. And Jeremiah is painfully honest about how much it hurts. The raw language in the books of Jeremiah and Lamentations can be hard for us to receive. They're not texts designed to cheer us up on a Sunday morning or at any other time. And many of us have been taught to avoid this kind of language, any deeply negative feelings, particularly in public. Lament is not a language that we are comfortable with. In small talk and on social media and in Christmas cards, we report mostly good news to one another. We are good, We are fine. We are pulling through. In the statistically very likely event that something in our lives is not progressing as we had hoped, we have few socially acceptable options. We can pretend it's not happening at all. We can try to put a good face on it. We can retreat as much as possible from public life. It may seem like everyone is doing okay because that's what mostly everyone tells us. But the truth is, most of us have at least one wound in our heart. Some piece of our lives is not what we would have hoped for or not what we had imagined. Some burden of care is weighing on us. Some fury or some fear is gnawing in our belly. Some loss has come to meet us, changing us forever. Some dear one is in pain or danger. And so we are all of us wounded, and we live in a very wounded world marked by violence and hate and fear and selfishness. There is a lot to grieve. It's hard to hear what Jeremiah has to say, but it's also refreshing to witness his honest heartbreak. As the church, we're called to follow his example, to tell the truth about what hurts. And so in worship and in fellowship, in our joys and concerns, on Monday morning walks, and in a million one-on-one conversations, we try to learn the art of lament. We try to share what is really happening in our lives and in the life of the world, even when it means revealing a wound. It's hard work. Most of us need practice. We need practice sharing what is really on our minds and in our hearts. We need practice naming truly what's going on around us. And we need practice listening to one another. Listening without assumptions and without judgment. Listening without offering quick advice or demanding optimism. Listening with openness, with acceptance, and with love. As we practice here the arts of honest sharing and compassionate listening, we draw on the strength of God. God, who is an ever-present, ever-patient witness to all of our suffering. God, who cries alongside us as Jeremiah does with his people. God, who wraps her arms around us. God, who offers love and ever more endless love, pouring out like a healing salve on the broken skin of our souls. What pain do you carry with you? And what injustices are you grieving? I pray that you may find the courage to share honestly with God, if with no one else. God is always ready for our messy, uncomfortable feelings. I pray, too, that we might all continue to practice the art of witnessing, of loving by listening. May our presence for one another be a balm. May we help one another to feel the presence and compassion of God who weeps alongside us. May we welcome the healing that honest lament can bring. Amen.